Hey guys, and welcome back to another Blizzcon video. So today this is just going to be more of a slow and chilled out video in which I'll take a look at each of the new cards that are coming in Goblins vs Gnomes. Well, the announced cards. Of course there are over 120 coming, but we only know about 38 of them. And I've got to say, some of this stuff is just really cool, so hey, I thought it'd be fun if we can just sit down and have a bit of a chat about them. I've got to start off with some of the really cool ones like the legendaries and the epics, and yeah, I'll move my way down the list after that. If you want a full overview of what's going on with Hearthstone, from Blizzcon and this expansion, then you can check out my overview video, which went up on the channel a few days ago. So first of all, we've got a 5/3/4 who was a good old favourite. It's the Atron 3000. I've got to say, this card could be really fun, and I just love the synergy that it could possibly have with other things, like, say, slimes. Maybe if your opponent's just equipped Gorehowl or something, well, you can just whack down Atron and, flip their Gorehowl out. That's just so cool. So yeah, nice stuff. Next, we've got Dr. Boom, very much in keeping with the theme of this expansion. First of all, a very meaty chap, 777, and if you look at this battlecry, summons 2 boom bots, and these bots may explode. Now, the actual boom bots themselves, well, they're pretty cool dudes, so they're a 1/1/1, but what's really nice about them is their death rattle effect. They deal 1 to 4 damage to a random enemy. That's insane! That could just lead to so much, cool stuff in general. And again, I love how RNG's playing into this expansion, and I just feel like it could add some really just interesting, fun, memorable games. So next, we've got Meccano, something like that, Thermoplug, who of course is a character from Warcraft that we all know and maybe, or maybe not love, whatever. So he's a 9/9/7, very beefy guy, but whenever he dies, he summons a Leaper Gnome. So maybe not the most interesting of characters, of cards, but still pretty cool. Now next up on the legendary front, we've got Mimiron's Head, something which I'm sure we've all been searching for in the actual World of Warcraft, and this is a pretty cool card. So at the start of your turn, if you've got at least 3 mechs, they're all destroyed and it forms V07TRON. If you don't know what that is, well, it's Mimiron's giant mech from Ulduar. This is a 8 mana cost, 4/8, that's got Charge and Mega Wind Fury, which is a new kind of move, which allows it to attack 4 times in a single turn. That's insane! Just what a cool card, and again, I love the synergy going on with all the various mech units in this expansion. It's just so cool, I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. Okay, so next we've got another legendary, and this is a 8/5/7, so yeah, it's pretty expensive for its raw stats, but it's Sneed's Old Shredder, and its Death Rattle will summon a random legendary minion. I think this is really cool from many perspectives. First of all, of course, summoning a random legendary is just a cool thing in general, but also, if you're a player who maybe doesn't have a lot of legendaries in your deck, well, if you can work towards getting the dust for Sneed's Old Shredder, that will actually allow you to play around with multiple different legendaries. So again, I think that's a pretty nice thing. Alright, next, we're going to move on to some of the epic cards, and this first one is the Bouncing Blade. It's one that they showed off at the Blizzcon floor, and it does 1 damage to a random minion, and it keeps on doing this until something dies. Now, this is a warrior card, and just think about the other warrior, minions which rely on taking 1 damage, and, maybe they buff themselves or draw a card for you or give you armor. This has got just incredible synergy, and for 3 mana, that's just such a good card. So next we've got the Clockwork Giant. As is keeping with the Giants, its mana cost is modified by something to do with the board or people's hands, and in this case, it's cheaper based on the amount of cards in your opponent's hand. This is pretty cool actually, and they said that it's more of a metagame counter card, so things like, say, a Handlock are strongly countered by a Clockwork Giant. I don't know, maybe if someone really wants to get a strong Twilight Drake, well, that'll involve them building up a hefty hand, and if you've got a Clockwork Giant, then boom, you've got a strong counter to that. So next, on the epic front, we've got a cheaper one. It's the Enhanso Meccano, which, fun enough name. So this guy's got a really, really cool battlecry. It gives your other minions Wind Fury, Taunt, or Divine Shield at random. Now, this is just cool because depending on what this random thing is, well, you're going to be put into a different situation every time. That said, it is a very expensive card. It's a 4/3/2, so it comes at a price, and it'll be interesting to see just what kind of decks this is used with. Certainly, again, it just sounds like another fun card which is embracing RNG in a way that I don't think's that game-breaking at all. It just seems like fun. Really, it's really cramming a lot of functionality into 30 cards, which I think is an awesome idea in terms of design. So next we've got the Piloted Sky Golem. This is a 6/6/4, so yeah, again, like a lot of the other piloted mechs, it's pretty expensive for its raw stats, but when it dies, a random 4-cost minion will eject from it and then land itself on your board. So really, it's a very good value card. Now next, we've got the Recon Bob You Later. Yes, a 2/3/2 that will transform a friendly minion into a random minion with the same cost. I could imagine this being an extremely powerful card, especially since its raw stats for its mana cost are not that bad. So maybe if you've got maybe a 4 mana creature, it's pretty beefy, but it's taken 1 or 2 hits and it's about to die, well, boom, your Recon Bob You Later basically just re-energizes that sort of sunk cost in mana into something far more, well, potentially far more useful. So again, really, really interesting card. So yeah, nice stuff. Now next we've got a 5/3/3, and this is the Bomb Lobber. Its battle cry will make it do 4 damage to a random enemy minion. That is very powerful. Very, very powerful for a battle cry effect. Now of course, it's only a 3/3 for 5, but still, that's a good chance that's going to kill something, and you probably, if you play this right, could certainly get a 2-for-1 trade. Seems like quite a powerful card. Next, we've got the Gnome Experimenter. This is another one that they talked about on the stage, and essentially, when you play this card, it will draw another card, and if that card is a minion, it will be transformed into a chicken, which is not particularly useful, but if you're using a deck that's got maybe loads of weapons, loads of spells, and things like that, then this is probably a pretty decent card if you really need that specific draw, while at the same time getting a minion. So yeah, drawing a card and getting a minion for 3 mana is it's a pretty good deal. Though of course there is that risk. Now next we've got a rare card called the Goblin Blast Mage. It's a 4/5/4, so it's pretty good in the stats front, but its battle cry is that if you control a mech, it will deal 4 damage split randomly between enemy characters. That again is, it's embracing randomness in I think an interesting way, but yeah, it could be very strong. I mean, certainly getting 4 free damage on the enemy side of the board, while at the same time getting a beefy card like this is a very good value proposition, so definitely quite cool. Now next we've got another interesting card. It's the Mad Bomber sort of ramped up to 11, and it's the, well, Madder Bomber. It's just a bit more crazy. It does 6 damage randomly split between all other characters. That includes you, it includes your stuff. But imagine you're in one of those scenarios where maybe your opponent's got a large board but a pretty weak board and you really don't have anything. Maybe they've just been able to really get board control. Well, in that situation, something like the Madder Bomber will likely be a very powerful card because, yeah, you get 6 damage, hopefully mostly in your enemy, and you get a 5/4, which is still a pretty strong, minion, so yeah, cool stuff. Now next we've got the Unstable Portal, woohoo! This adds a random minion to your hand, and it costs 3 less. So for 2 mana, I could see this being quite a nice tactical card in some decks, and certainly it means that you'll be able to play a 3 mana card for 0 mana, so maybe there could be some very interesting early plays involving this card. I'll have to just think a bit more about how it actually will pan out. So yeah, pretty cool for the mages. Now next we've got the upgraded Repair Bot. This is a priest card, and what it does is it gives a friendly mech +4 health, which is very strong, and on top of that, it's a 5/5/5. There is just so much value crammed into this card, and I really like the idea of making mech-based decks that are, based on classes, so I think that could be pretty cool. Okay, next we've got a 2/1/2, so maybe not the most powerful card, but it's got Taunt and Divine Shield, and this is the Annoy Atron, and it's very aptly named. What an annoying bastard to play at 2 mana. I mean, come on, it's got a Taunt, so first of all, it's a Taunt, and then also Divine Shield with 2 health. At that stage of the game, it's going to take 2 to 3 hits to down this, and if this guy is going up against, say, 2/1 creatures, then it's going to be very powerful. So yeah, that's pretty cool to see. Now, the next thing that we've got is the Clockwork Gnome. This is a fun little card that actually plays into the spare parts system. So it's a 1/2/1, not particularly powerful, however, for the mana cost, pretty decent. And what it does when it dies is that it will put a spare part in your hand. Now, spare parts are pretty cool cards, and I'll round them up at the end of this video, but essentially they're cheap cards which will allow you to augment one of your pre-existing cards. Pretty interesting. Now, we've got another cheap card in the form of the COG Master. It's a 1/1/2, so again, I think that's, 1/1/2 is a card that you can potentially get quite a lot done with, and what it really shines in, though, is that it will have +2 attack while you have a mech on the field. Now, that means this is going to be a very, very good card. Maybe if you're putting out something cheap like a Spider Bot and you've got 1 or 2 mana left, well, the COG Master is really going to round out the power of your board, which I really do think is pretty cool. Next, we've got the Explosive Sheep. Explosive Sheeps are always fun. So it's 2-on-1, very weak, but its Death Rattle does 2 damage to all minions. Just kind of lovely, actually. I mean, that could be a very, again, another very tactical card. And if you've got one of these on your board, then certainly you could probably do some very interesting things. Because this has an attack component, you'll be able to sack it into your enemy and deal even more damage. It's kind of like a crazy Leaper Gnome that hits everything in a way. Next, we've got a pretty cool spell card. This is the Flame Cannon. Now, this is interesting. It does, 2 mana cost, but 4 flame damage to a random enemy minion. Now, of course, the randomness could be a bit unreliable there, but it's 2 mana. 4 damage for 2 mana? If the enemy has only got 1 card on the field, that's going to be so damn good. Really, really good. So it's a very powerful card. Maybe a little bit too OP in 1 or 2 scenarios at the early game, but certainly it's interesting to me. Next, we've got the Mech Warper. This is a pretty standard card, 2/2/3. And it just means that your other mechs are a bit cheaper. So if you really want to get tons of mechs in the field, this is going to be good. And I could certainly see some early game plays that involve getting Mech Warper out, getting loads of mechs, and then putting out loads of COG Masters, and, things like that. And maybe Clockwork Gnomes. So yeah, it could be pretty cool. Now next, we've got the Micro Machine. A 2/1/2. But at the start of each turn, it will gain +1 attack. A pretty mundane card, however, because it's a mech, it's going to have synergy with many other mech cards. So the next thing that we've got is not actually a mech card, it's just a weapon, the Ogre Warm. This is interesting. It's 3 mana, 4 damage, and it can, last 2 times, but it's got a 50% chance to hit the wrong enemy. Now, it's a pretty good card for its cost, but 50% chance to hit the wrong enemy. I don't know, that could actually be kind of useful though. Imagine if the enemy, say, got a taunt creature and then another creature. Will this 50% chance mean that you could attack the taunt, roll sort of quote bad, air quote bad, on hitting the taunt and then hit the other minion? Hard to know how that'll play out, but certainly there could be some interesting stuff going on. So next we've got a 4-cost card, it's the Piloted Shredder. This is a 4/4/3, so it's okay, but its main strength is that it will summon a random 2-cost minion whenever it dies. So again, it's pretty nice, and I really do like the idea of these piloted cards. Okay, so next we've got the Shrink Master. This is another priest card. It's 2 mana, 3 attack, 2 damage, and its battle cry will give a minion -2 attack this turn. That's pretty cool. In some of those early game situations, having a 2 mana card with 3 health, 2 health, and also this battle cry, that's very good. It could really turn the tide of some sneaky and potentially very deadly early game plays from your opponent. Now then, we've got the Spider Tank. This is a 3/3/4, so stats-wise, it's very good in terms of its mana cost. No card effect, but it's a mech, meaning that it will have excellent synergy with other mechs. Then we've also got the Tinkertown Technician. It's a battle cry, and if you control a mech on the field, it will gain 1/1, which will make it a 3/4/4, which is a very, very good for cost proposition. And also, if you've got control of a mech while you play this guy, you'll get a spare part in your hand. I'm going to cover those spare parts very soon. Next, we've got another priest card. This is Valens Chosen. 3 mana, and it essentially just gives a minion +2, +4, so 2 attack, 2 attack, 4 health, and 1 spell damage. So that really will beef up a minion, and if you're in some sort of priest deck that involves a bit more spell power, it could be kind of interesting. Now then, time to talk about these spare parts cards. So I don't think these actually count towards the 120 card total of this expansion, and they're essentially just cheap little cards that cost 1 mana that can be used to augment the things on your field. So we've got Whirling Blades. This is just a card that will give a minion +1 attack. We've also got the Time Rewinder, which will return a friendly minion to your hand. There's also the Rusty Horn, which will give a minion taunt. The Reversing Switch, which will swap a minion's attack and health. It's a fun card to get as any class because it is one of these spare parts. And then we've also got the Finicky Cloak Field, which will give a friendly minion stealth until the end of your next turn. There's also the Emergency Coolant, which will actually freeze a minion, which is nice. And then also Armor Plating, which will give a minion +1 health. So there you go, that's a bit of a look at the cards that we currently have got going on in this expansion. I've got to say that while, a lot of people I think are going to be concerned about the heavy amounts of RNG, I've got to say that these look like fun cards. They look like the sort of cards that can make some really interesting plays and really fun stories and moments. Those crazy times when a lore walker show just leads to absolute insanity? I feel like quite a lot of that's going to happen, and certainly I cannot wait to try this expansion once it comes out next month in December. So yeah, let me know what you think about these cards. Especially, I'm interested to hear what people think about some potential combinations that I may have missed out on. I'm sure there are many, of course. So yeah, be sure to let me know. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.